Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to the local community. Visit them at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Welcome in, everybody. Victory Tuesday here on Bills Weekly on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo joined, as always, by Jim Sinicropi and Kyle Evans. We are here. We'll be recapping and discussing the Bills' win in Super Wildcard Weekend over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 31-17. We'll dive into a little bit about the crazy weekend for the Bills in the Buffalo area, and of course, dive into the Divisional Round weekend as the Bills are set to host this time the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night. But guys, before we get to all that, good to see you, and it's nice. I think we've had multiple Victory Tuesdays on the year. This one, though, a little bit more surprising in the fact that the chaos of the weekend kind of left question marks up in the air in general for the game, and lo and behold, at the end of the day, the Bills come out with a pretty, I don't want to say convincing, but arm's length, did what they had to do victory over the Steelers.
Yeah, they jumped out to a 21-0 lead. It looked like they're kind of just going to roll, against the Steelers offense, who didn't run the ball well all day, gave up some long third downs that kind of helped the Steelers move down the field. Mason Rudolph wasn't as bad as, I guess, you could say, some games that he's played. I've seen worse, that's for sure. But when you have a defense that just seemed like a guy was dropping every play, you have fourth and fifth string linebackers playing, fourth, fifth, and sixth cornerbacks playing. It's going to make it tough. But then you look, they still only give up 17 points to an NFL team. I would say that's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was shocking to me was once the Bills got out to that lead, or even before they did, Mason Rudolph moved the ball down the field, threw an interception in the end zone, so the Bills got a break there. And then in the second half, Rudolph continued to just move the ball down the field, like with little resistance. And it was pretty shocking to see the Bills not able to, totally shut him down and put him away. But like you said, Kyle, the injuries are significant, and I think that's going to play a key role in the next round next weekend, especially when the Chiefs play Saturday night, so they get 7 full days off. The Bills play Monday, they get 5 days off. So that's going to play a factor too.
Yeah, one of the Bills' starting middle linebackers was A.J. Klein, and he played the whole second half. He was just signed to the roster 4 days ago from the game. He actually said after the game that he was planning a vacation with his wife when Brandon Beane called him and said, "We need you." So, and he led the team with tackles and only played the second half. So I would say that's quite the story right there.
Yeah, I believe, to go deeper than that even, the way it sounded, the RV was packed and they were pretty much hours moving down to Key West, I believe it was. So just crazy. Excuse me. And a guy who familiar with the system anyway. I mean, has he been pretty much exclusively a Buffalo Bill, it feels like?
Yeah, he's been around a while. I feel like a lot of times on the practice squad, though. But, yeah, he kind of knows the system a little bit. But, still, to go out there, he hasn't really been around the team all year. And he just comes, practices like 2 or 3 days. The snow postpones it to a day later, and here he is making plays.
A story like that, though, does not seem to coincide with a Super Bowl run. When you're pulling guys off of their vacation just to put a body in there for you on defense, that's not generally the way it goes when you're a Super Bowl contender. So they really need to get healthy this week if it's even possible. There's so many guys that are hurt, from Rasul Douglas to Taylor Rapp to Bernard now.
Yep.
I mean, it goes on and on.
Tyrell Dotson.
So, the biggest thing this week is going to be keeping an eye on that injury report and seeing how many of these guys can get healthy ahead of next Sunday night.
Yeah, I would say it's probably outside of the main game stuff, right? That's got to be, at this point now, the main headline is, again, we're in here talking about injuries. And it's been one of those things for the Bills that, all year it seems like they haven't gone a week without having somebody go down in some way, shape, or form.
Usually on defense.
Right. And, yesterday they got dinged up a little bit on offense. What scared me was, he ended up coming back in and no problem, but when Diggs got popped there at the end of, I believe it was coming to the end of the first half, and was very slow to get up, I began to worry a little bit there, but he came back out for the second half and played no problem, so it was one of those things where it's like, they already lost him. Look, Gabe Davis is Gabe Davis, but, you can't lose your definite number one receiver without your de facto number two guy also down.
Yeah, when I showed the replay, I was like, how did he even get hurt here?
I think it was just the wind knocked out of him.
It seemed like it was so cold that everything hurts a little more, I think.
If you've been watching the Bills as long as, obviously, I have. I know you do. You would know that Stephon Diggs doesn't like contact.
Right.
He likes to step out of bounds a lot. So in the first quarter, he got hit twice. And then that play he got hit, I think he just got the wind knocked out of him. He was tired of getting hit. He's not used to that. I texted with somebody last night. That's probably the most contact in a game he's taken all year. Because he literally catches the ball and steps out, or he's just gone to the end zone. So
I don't know of many receivers in this era that do enjoy contact.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
Keenan Allen,
welcome it.
Sure.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a lot.
Sure. Well,
Khalil Shakir.
Amon-Ra does his best usually to avoid it too. But
Here with the play of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool to see, for sure. So,
Well-
I don't think the problem's on the offense because you got Josh Allen is going to be able to create, and you got enough tools between, James Cook had a pretty solid game. It's the defense at this point, and it was on display last night when Mason Rudolph just led the Steelers down the field time and time again, and didn't get as many points as maybe he should have for the production that he put up statistically.
Well, and that, kind of leads into some stuff here. So let's start with that defensive end, I guess, right? And that kind of plays in. A.J. Klein, we already talked about, led the way with tackles, but Dorian Williams was second with 8. And you kind of bring up the fact again, right? Like, how many guys can actually go down here before you start really kind of getting to, not that it's a problem, but you can't keep, in my mind, like, winning with your B team. They kind of
This is the C team, though.
Well,
Because
I'm
remember,
not going to knock Jordan Poyer that way.
Well, remember, these two didn't even play the entire first half. They only came in the second half. And that was because Tyrell Dotson was out. He's already the second string. His third string guy, Balin Spector, left early. The fourth string came in. And the fourth and fifth were playing middle linebacker the entire second half.
One of your most important positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's just one of those things where, okay, sure. We'll call it the C team. I call it B team because they still got some guys out there. But in that sense, though, right, like, the point still stands. Like, they're getting away with something right now that I don't want to say it's unprecedented. Like, backups have stepped up before in that sense. But to kind of put up the performance they did yesterday in very adverse conditions, under, not the toughest, second toughest circumstances, right? Just general playoff football. Like, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. And I don't know if they're going to continue to get away with it, quote unquote, but it's one of those things where they've kind of continuously done it all year that, like, I don't know if it's that big of a detriment almost in a way,
Well, it is when you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and you're going to have the Chiefs coming into town, which that's one thing. The Chiefs are a little down, and the Bills have had success in the playoffs against the Chiefs, and in the regular season, I should say, going down and beating them in Arrowhead. Now they're coming to Buffalo. I think people assume that that's a good matchup for the Bills, but if they get past that round, now you're really going to be exposed with these injuries. When you play teams like the Ravens or maybe the 49ers, if you get to the Super Bowl, it's hard to think of the Bills as Super Bowl favorites at this point, given what we saw last night and how decimated their defense is.
yeah, I think the only good news is, like I said, they're probably going to get Russell Douglas back, Tyrell Dotson, who's been playing very well at middle linebacker, meaning that Dorian Williams or A.J. Klein won't be playing next week if Tyrell does come back. And then they lost both corners, too, Taron Johnson and Christian Benford. So hopefully one of those guys comes back. One had a knee injury early in the first half. That was Christian Benford. And then Taron Johnson had a head injury, so I'm assuming a concussion. But it didn't come out and say concussions. So, yeah, that's what I mean. They were without both of their corners and on their fourth and fifth linebackers in the entire second half. It was just unbelievable that they still only gave up 17 points.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So, yeah, I mean, we already talked a little bit about the top two. Jordan Poyer had 6 tackles, Kerry Elam 5 tackles and an interception. Terrell Bernard before going down 4 tackles and a fumble recovery. Then Greg Rousseau 4 tackles and the lone sack for the defense. So, towards the bottom, usual suspects, I'd say, up on the front line of things anyway. Always a positive.
Kind of weird, though, only 1 sack from the D-line. The D-line's healthy.
Yeah.
So they were getting pressure on him at times, just couldn't really get him down.
That was
he escaped a few times as well.
That was about the best the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line's probably played in about 2 years yesterday, somehow, some way.
At least the pass protection. I mean, they weren't opening up many holes for their running backs, but, yeah, I mean, Mason Rudolph, the quarterback of the future in Pittsburgh?
No.
I don't know. I'm just shocked that they kept with him and didn't go back to Pickett.
That's the one thing I literally tweeted. I tweeted free Kenny Pickett.
I thought for sure we might see him again, and we just never saw him again. It's kind of weird.
Look, I know this isn't Steelers Weekly, but I said it yesterday to a couple friends that I know who are Steelers fans and fans of teams in the AFC North. I'm kind of convinced Mike Tomlin might be a hair overrated, admittedly. I just don't understand how you go into a playoff game like that and just zero adjustment, at all throughout the game. It was just wild to witness.
They're down 2 scores and they're going back-to-back runs.
Yeah.
When this is your season on the line, you have George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, a banged-up secondary, a weak middle of the field with your 4th and 5th linebackers playing, and they don't attack what the weakness is.
Yeah.
Just weird. That's coaching right there, and I don't know how Tomlin's back because of that.
Yeah.
We saw all year the Steelers were the lowest scoring team in the playoffs, and obviously we kind of saw that last night.
Yeah.
Even though they did move the ball.
Yeah, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that Super Bowl now is an awful long 15 years ago.
Yeah. They find ways to make the playoffs, but then they don't win, and I think they've given up 30 or more points in their last 5 playoff losses. So.
Yeah.
But it is impressive coming off of Ben Roethlisberger's career, him exiting and Tomlin still being able to maintain some level of success to be in the playoffs, where most other franchises, struggle.
And remember, there was
losing a franchise quarterback like that.
No TJ Watt. I think that would have been a little different yesterday if he played. Not totally different. I just think, he does make an impact. There's a reason why they made the playoffs and a reason why they won, 10 games? TJ Watt was a big part.
Yeah, and so that's at the heart of the theme of yesterday's game was, it's the playoffs. You just want to win in advance, and so that's great. The Bills won. I don't think many Bills fans were expecting them not to win. It was a great scene at Highmark. It was a lot of snow still around and very cold, and 4:30 Monday game, the Bills won. But now, we turn our attention towards the next game, and that's going to be a tougher task. And then beyond that, I just don't know if these Bills are healthy enough to make a run at a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, we'll jump into that in a second. I do want to have a quick debate here, run through some stats. James Cook, 18 carries, 79 yards. Josh Allen, 21 for 30, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns, had 8 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid, 3 receptions, 59 yards and a touchdown. Diggs, 7 receptions, 52 yards. Dawson Knox had 1 reception, 9 yards, but it was a touchdown to get things going. Khalil Shakir, 3 receptions, 31 yards and a touchdown. But I know Shakir, he probably had the play of the game, admittedly, but it's between him and Josh Allen's 52-yard run, the second longest in playoff history for a quarterback.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Behind Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. So what was the play of the game for you guys between the two? Because it's got to be one of those two in my mind.
I think the Shakir one was kind of put it away, where when Allen scored, it was kind of like, oh, the route is on, but then it really wasn't. But then Shakir Shakir's was more impressive, I think. Although there's a thing with quarterbacks now when you watch, especially when they break into the secondary or running quarterback, the secondary defenders are waiting for him to slide. So they don't attack him like they would a running back because they don't want to get the penalty. And so like these quarterbacks also have a mini advantage here. And even watching that run, when he split those two Steelers defenders, I was thinking, okay, that was a great run. He's about to slide and it's going to, and then the Bills will huddle up. But no, he just put it in another gear and kept going. I think he surprised the Steelers. And you see that a lot. And it's a tough spot for defenders to be in because, normally they're trying with everything to get the ball carrier down, but when a quarterback has it, they have to almost wait and see if they're going to slide or not. And if they make that decision a split second too late, the guy can be gone or they can get tagged with an unsportsmanlike conduct, or unnecessary roughness.
I think I would agree with you. I would go with the Shakir just because it put it away and you felt more comfortable. But even the Josh Allen run at the time, it was 21-0. I felt really comfortable.
Yeah, I thought the route was on. I had the Bills in the 10 points, and felt like the bet was over at that point, which it wasn't. Right down to the end of the game, the Steelers could have covered the spread with a score in the last possession. So, but in terms of winning the game, it was in doubt when Shakir made that play to score the final touchdown for the Bills.
How about Josh Allen reaching 19 miles per hour on that run? And with his size, you would just never think that.
Yeah.
And then he goes and flexes on them.
Deceptive speed.
Well, that's a key part of their offense. I mean, like I say, looking at the Bills through the lens of being able to win a Super Bowl, that's something they're going to need him to do. They're going to need him to make incredible plays with his legs going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've been used to him this year more or less being the bulldoze type, not the sprinter type. It's been a while since he's kind of had a run like that.
Beginning of the year, remember, he wasn't even running.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about it. Like, why isn't he running? It was because they were telling him, to be more conservative. They didn't want him to get hurt, but he doesn't play well unless he is unleashed to kind of be reactionary and do things like that.
Well, I mean, I think the big part of it too, right, is I don't know if it's so much even like kind of like that as the fact that when you game plan, you have to, in theory, keep either a spy on him or not. When at the beginning of the year, you could just keep a guy either out in coverage, your choice, or you could send an extra guy in a blitz package because you knew he wasn't going to necessarily take off. And now I think it's just a little bit easier on the Bills, to kind of have that leverage of when it's more of a, I wouldn't say balanced attack from Josh, right? But knowing in the back of your mind that they're giving him that leash of going out and going.
Yeah, and I think the best part about yesterday was Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over at all.
Right.
And since 2020, they're 17-0 when he doesn't turn the ball over. So it's kind of weird that it's only been 17 times though since 2020. We're in 2024.
He'll be key next weekend to protect the ball against Kansas City.
All right, before we get to that game, I do want to spend a quick minute on how we got to having a Bills game played at 4:30 on a Monday, obviously. I think we probably all know, but if you somehow don't, one of the classic, what I call Buffalo Lake Erie Lake effect snowstorms occurred. I've been quasi-affected by them before, coming back from college, having to take the end around through the southern tier to get home sometimes. That happens, but just chaos. This is at least the second year in a row a Bills game's been affected by this in some different way, shape, or form. And I don't think it gets talked about enough. I don't think it gets talked about enough how, it's really, a tough thing on, all fronts. I think it's kind of, easier for us to kind of talk about it from, a logistical standpoint. And they talked about a little bit on the broadcast, which was kind of cool, I thought. Jim Nantz talked about how, CBS is there 5 days in advance to do all their setup, all their tech stuff. Only for it, you have to go back out in those conditions to either A, make sure everything's good, or B, work to replace stuff. It's kind of a crazy, hectic situation when something like this happens. And I want to give some kudos to CBS, obviously, broadcasting-wise, but the NFL and the teams. I was kind of going at some people on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, because of the way everything was kind of going down.
You couldn't play that game on Sunday. You saw what the
No, but I thought it was kind of funny how, admittedly, everybody was kind of like earlier in the week. There was a lot of people kind of going at Dolphins fans and certain Chiefs fans about, oh, you just have to play through it. We're going to play through it. And then all of a sudden, as I call it, went loud quiet for a little bit. And everything kind of played out the way it was supposed to. I wasn't convinced, actually, that they were going to play yesterday, though. Just look at the pictures of some of the stuff even yesterday morning.
they were going to have to
get to the
because
point.
if not, everything's screwed up. They had to get it in. Like, what were they going to move it to today? And then the Bills have one, they had to get it in, and it was fine.
You want another Monday Night Football playoff game?
Well, even if it did, even if they did move Chiefs Bills to Monday next week, it still is not fair to the Bills or the Steelers if they were to win.
Right.
I mean, that's getting a little too much. But yeah, of course they had to move it. I mean, you saw the images of the stadium on Sunday. I mean, you couldn't get people to and from. I mean, there's a travel advisory. There was whiteout conditions, and there would have been some serious accidents and maybe even deaths from people trying to get to and from that game. So they waited a day. They shoveled it out, but there was pictures of Pittsburgh fans trying to get to their seats where it wasn't shoveled. What, did they not shovel the Pittsburgh section?
So, well, this is where, before Kyle, you jump in, I'll jump in quickly because of my former background of sorts. So, admittedly, when you get to a certain point, you just kind of have to either throw up the white flag or figure out a way to persevere through. So, the way it was still snowing kind of at this time, not quite this time, wrapped up probably about an hour ago this time yesterday, but it was just still falling at such a rate that they could only kind of get the walkways cleared enough in time, and you just have to kind of handle that and the logistical liabilities of such and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to bore people too much, but that was always the first thing. I remember being told back in like college when we would do stuff like this, you get the walkways cleared, you get the what we would call safety first parts cleared. So walkways, bathrooms, stuff like that. And then anything else is just kind of icing on the cake.
Yeah, and the thing is, most people just stand anyway at the game. So I know you're still going to be standing in snow, but you're not actually really going to sit. And then you saw some people were wearing snow pants, so they just sat in the snowbank on the seats and just put their drinks in the snow and, just made it.
Had a great time.
Yeah, made it fun.
Yeah. Have you guys been to a snow game up in Buffalo before?
No.
Okay, so my first Bills, I've only been to 3 Bills games, 5 total NFL games, but the first one I went to was my sophomore year of college. So this was December of 2013. And 1, imagine where the Bills were at that point. But 2, they were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Imagine where the Jacksonville Jaguars were at that point. It was not a great game. We were up in the 300s, and it was a borderline whiteout game for that. And that was a miserable existence for that game. So to get to where we were a decade ago to now with the Bills, where those games are much more of a party atmosphere, as I'll call it, job well done to everyone involved, I'll say. I admit, I have to put the hand, I have to eat, drink the blank on that one. And
There could be lake effect next week.
Huh?
It's going to be cold all week.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if the wind blows a certain way, there could be lake effect off of Lake Erie next week as well.
Yeah, they put
they're
the tarp
expecting what, like
another
another foot at
1 to
least,
2.
right?
Yeah, they put the tarp back on the field last night, but it says from now until Thursday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, so let's jump into next week. Divisional round, Chiefs at Bills, Sunday, 6:30 on CBS. I'll get to this part first before jumping into the Chiefs part, since we're kind of doing the transition. Weather at this point, forecast is 20 degrees and cloudy. So no falling snow element as of right now, but you can't break the temperature at that point. Bills currently set as a 2.5-point favorite, over under a 45.5. Bills beat Kansas City in Week 14, 20-17 at Arrowhead Stadium. We know their main players. I'm not going to jump into this stuff. Mahomes and Kelsey and Pacheco did all year. We already know what they've done. So this is the first time in the quote-unquote Mahomes versus Allen era that the playoffs were going to be going through Highmark Stadium. A first for that. Taylor Swift comes to Western New York potentially.
Probably, yeah.
There's a lot on this game. This is I know we kind of have viewed the past couple games as like quote unquote the biggest in this era of Bills football, but this one actually does feel like that for sure the time being, because this would get the monkey of you can't get by the Chiefs in the playoffs off your back. You get to the AFC Championship game. And I think, you know, depending upon what happens in that Houston Ravens game, I kind of like the Bills' chances, admittedly, as long as they get by the Chiefs. I really do.
Yeah, if they get healthy. I mean, I don't think the Chiefs are as good as the Ravens this year. But maybe the Texans pull an upset too. But yeah, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs they aren't your father's Chiefs or the Chiefs of the past few years. They certainly aren't.
See, not your brother's Chiefs for them be brought up, yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting because if the Bills were 100% healthy on defense, I would really like the Bills' chances. Now it's just, I think it's going to be a show of a game between Mahomes and Allen. You know, Rashee Rice has really stepped up for Kansas City to become that go-to receiver for Mahomes. The other guys are still kind of terrible. Kelsey hasn't been very impressive as of late since he started dating Taylor Swift. So I don't know. I think the Bills open up as 2.5-point favorites.
Yep.
So I think that's probably accurate. But man, it's going to be a nail biter. I think it's going to be a tough one for the Bills. So the good thing they are at home, even though the Bills have had plenty of success in Arrowhead.
Yeah, the Bills have actually won 3 straight against them in the regular season and held them to 20 points or less in every game. The problem is in those 2 playoff games, they've given up 38 and 42. So their defense is just different in the playoffs. The one was an overtime game and that wild shootout. But yeah, and then the first matchup earlier this year, back in December, was 20-17. Very low scoring.
I predicted a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, like I said. You know, you kind of got 2 teams where, you know, I thought the Bills, and I still kind of believe it to a degree, kind of at a crossroad of sort for going forward. You have the Chiefs who, admittedly, I think are actually at a crossroad. Nobody just kind of realizes it just yet in the grand scope of it. You know.
Oh, so?
Well, you know.
Holmes not going anywhere.
Well, no, but I think there are certain people around Andy Reid that could be going somewhere, whether their choice or not. It's pretty apparent in my mind that letting Tyreek Hill go was probably a mistake. Even though he was on the sidelines for my favorite team this year, and now there's questions rising about him, I think, you know, kind of letting Eric Bieniemy kind of go was a bit of an interesting choice looking back on it. You know, I don't know. It's one of those things where I look at the Chiefs and they just don't really frighten me anymore. You know, that was their main thing for those
no wide receivers.
past 5 years. Right.
Literally
They
terrible.
lead the league in drops. So
Terrible.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. It's like, cool, you have Patrick Mahomes. Like,
So I wouldn't say they're
You
at
know.
crossroads because they just need to find another receiver, whether it's in the draft or in the free agency. I mean, and like I say, Rashee Rice seems to be a guy who's going to stick around. So they need like one more guy. I mean, get rid of the Marcus Valdez-Scantlings of the world and the.
I don't disagree with that, but like, think about like the main wide receivers that are going to be on the market this year, for example. Devontae Adams, like, he doesn't want to go to Kansas City.
Why not?
Well, I think he has a pretty good destination in mind that he wants to go to,
he's
but
not a number 1, but Gabe Davis wants to go to KC.
does he really?
Wouldn't he want to? It's Patrick Mahomes. Any receiver would want to go play with Mahomes, I would think.
In that offense, yeah.
I don't know.
He's a deep threat.
For me, I just don't. I have a tough time viewing him that way anymore at this point. Like, it's
No, at the moment they're not, but I think.
They'll have a busy offseason.
Yeah, I think they could certainly right the ship in the off season. But when's the off season going to start? Is it going to start on Monday, or or the Bills off season going to start on Monday? That's a real question. Because this game seems like a toss up to me.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went back a couple weeks ago, I would have liked the Bills. But now it is a toss up. Like I say, Vegas has them 2.5-point favorite, so I guess they are favored. But man, this is going to be a heck of a game on Sunday night with high stakes.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I like being the decisive one here in a way.
Why, you like the Bills?
No, yeah. I personally speak, I don't. I think it will be close. I mean, I think every playoff game in theory is going to be close.
Except this past weekend.
Yeah, well, I was about to say. I mean, this was not the gleaming example of that this past week.
We had one game, Rams-Lions.
Yeah. So.
I mean, the Bills are suiting up a guy who was about to go on vacation. He wasn't even on the practice squad. Like, it's frightening. And so, imagine next week you don't have Mason Rudolph, throwing the ball down the field. You got Patrick Mahomes. Man, I mean, the Bills are going to probably need to put up some points because I don't see this Bills defense stopping Kansas City.
Yeah, I think it's going to take
unless they get healthy. Unless they get healthy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and go first. Then I'm gonna stick
predictions.
I'm gonna stick my flag in this. I think Buffalo wins 30-20. I don't think it's really. I think it's kind of the same thing as the Steelers game. I think they just keep them at arm's length and kind of keep it going and moving along. I just again Kansas City down the stretch did nothing for me. They don't frighten me anymore. I think finally the Bills get the Kansas City playoff monkey off their back, and I think maybe that really helps propel them for the rest of the way. Now, obviously, I get the health can happen, but, there's the element of, when you're playing good and you have momentum, it kind of carries you through, We've seen that a bunch of times, whether it's in the NFL or other sports, where that certainly can be the case. So I think that's kind of happening a little bit right now with the Bills, and I'm going to stick my flag in the ground on that one. 30-20, the Bills get the win.
Well, I wrote this down last night. I had 30-21.
Okay.
So I think Stephon Diggs scored his first touchdown in 6 games. I'll make that as a prediction. And Gabe Davis, who always does very well against the Chiefs in the playoffs, returns and scores a touchdown. Bills have a good day on
Usually
offense.
if he scores 1, he scores 2.
Yeah, that's true, too. So maybe he'll have 2, Diggs will have 1, and then
James Cook will rush for 70-something yards. But, I don't know, man. Again, if it goes down like it did last night, and you got Mahomes out there instead of Rudolph, I think I'm gonna predict the Bills' victory. I think it's gonna be tight, 27-24. Might even be a last-second Tyler Bass field goal.
Oh, we got to come down to him.
I was going to say, now that's the one injury we actually didn't talk. Not Tyler Bass, obviously, but Sam Martin.
Yep.
And
that was horrible.
It's weird talking about a punter in that way, but I mean, kind of could cause, depending upon what gets revealed here in the next potentially 12 to 24 hours in regards to him, could
He'll
cause
be
some
all right.
stuff.
He'll be all right.
Well, you hope. He was
Keep
moving
him up.
the last punt. He moved quick on, which punters don't usually move that quick on their motion to kick.
And he won't have much work to do anyway on Sunday. The Bills are going to punt one time.
See?
The other problem is, and I really do think this is a huge factor, because if you're betting games in the NFL, you see it all the time. Teams coming off extra rest versus teams coming off short rest. It's a big difference. The Chiefs went home on Saturday night, rested up on Sunday, probably did some kind of walkthrough on Monday, low impact. The Bills tomorrow, they got to get on it. Where it does make a difference, especially when you're as battered as the Bills are. It's almost unfair come playoffs for the NFL to put teams in situations like this, where one team who can have 2 more days rest before their matchup. It really seems unfair to me, and I think it puts the Bills at a big disadvantage here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think that's kind of goes back to what I was kind of having a gripe about last week a little bit, with the whole entire having the first weekend be across 3 days. This as a general type of deal. Like, you're kind of putting, no matter who plays that Monday night game, at some sort of de facto disadvantage. I mean, now you end up having 2 games on a Monday. Now both get spared. None are playing next Saturday, which would really, really would have been a
I don't know what type of show it would have been. It
When's
wouldn't be
Tampa
great.
game?
I think they're the Sunday
They're
afternoon, right?
early
Sunday
Sunday?
at 3:30.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, but
if the
both
Eagles won,
both were possible to
if
be
the-
playing on Saturday.
if the
Yeah.
Eagles won, wouldn't they have played on Saturday?
I mean, it's possible that they would have. Yeah, I believe so. Could be wrong. But.
No, they still would have
No?
played Saturday or Sunday at 3:30 because the Packers-Niners were locked in Saturday night,
Yeah. Okay.
and the Texans and Ravens are.
Oh, because once Dallas lost that chance, but let's say Dallas won, I think the winner of
And it might have
Philadelphia would have
flipped.
played Saturday, and I don't know how the NFL can let that happen. I really don't.
Meanwhile, Houston's played on 4 straight Saturdays now. I think, right?
Yeah, their
Something like
first two
that.
primetime games of the year, and they're 2-0.
Yeah. So.
And they're going to be 3-0. I'm calling it now. Bold prediction: Texans win this game.
Ooh.
Ravens have too much rest and just don't come out prepared.
Ooh.
I could see that.
We've seen it too many times where one seeds
There's
are
the
one
fine
and
line.
done.
Yeah, I mean, there is that fine line of who did that back then? It was the Colts, I think, right? They sat like Peyton Manning like 2 straight weeks, and like
Yep.
it ended up like burning them in the end.
Like you're getting practice reps, but that's not game reps. And the Texans are feeling confident and good about themselves. I don't know. CJ Stroud's playing very well.
Yeah, and they're healthy.
Yeah, and we thought the Browns defense was very good, which they are. And you would think the Ravens defense is better, right?
I don't think so.
Maybe not better defensively overall.
They have more playmakers. How about that? They take the ball away more. If you look at
Sure.
the stats,
Yeah.
like Kyle Hamilton's unbelievable. Their defensive line's great too. So, the defense, you don't ever know what defense is going to show up. I mean, look at the Cowboys game. I know the Cowboys defense isn't great, but the Packers scored that many points.
I mean, it's also a Baltimore defense that's given up a lot of points in a lot of games this year too. I mean, they gave up a couple 35-plus spots throughout the year. So
I like the Bills matchup with Baltimore, maybe more than Kansas City.
But let the Texans win, Bills win, we get the AFC Championship in Buffalo. That'd be fun.
Oh, that would be amazing, and I think that almost needs to hit. Well, no, I can see the Bills winning in Baltimore.
Remember, Josh Allen's 0-3 on the road in his playoff career.
Yeah,
But he's 5-1 at home.
certainly rather be home. And the NFL
like
might rather see it be home too with some more weather. Like, let's face it, weather games sell.
yeah, that's definitely true. Although Baltimore's had a couple weather games in a row, not snow related, but rain related, and those are fun too. I mean, I had more fun in the rain than snow when I played. So, all right, I think that about does it. So we at least got Bills across the board. We have varying levels of confidence going through the week. Remains to be seen though. So make sure for all the breaking Bill stuff, Kyle over here does a pretty bang up job. So
A lot of news this week tracking guys, the injury reports especially. I mean, they almost reserve their own article.
Yeah,
if we get
Sean
some
McDermott
updates.
speaks today at 4, so we'll get an update on Bernard and stuff like that.
And yeah, I think hopefully next Monday morning we're going to be talking about a win and previewing the AFC Championship.
yeah, nothing wrong with doing Victory Tuesdays with you guys, but I prefer Victory Mondays with the rest of the way, preferably speaking.
Yeah, it does throw it off. Like knowing that it's already Tuesday,
Yeah.
what are we, 5 days out already from another game?
Imagine now if you're the Bills players. Imagine waking up. Those guys played last night in the freezing cold. They got to be like sore. We know they're all banged up. And what are the Kansas City players doing? They're probably strolling into their practice facility, all rested up and feeling good. I mean, the Bills can't practice this morning. I mean, I think it's a huge disadvantage, and I think that it's a problem that the NFL has to address going forward. It's not fair. And the Bills are the higher seed, so they should never be put at this type of disadvantage.
Yeah, it's crazy knowing the Chiefs played 3 nights ago.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I mean, the physical toll that an NFL game puts on your body of these players. So, but it is what it is. So we'll see what happens.
For sure. So we'll be back, in theory, next Monday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, who knows what the weather's
Right.
going to be.
So appreciate everybody for listening and watching. You can find Bills Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com, the FL1 YouTube channel, all major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Amazon Music. We'll be back next Monday at 10 a.m. Until then, let's go Buffalo.